You know how when you're watching an ad in a commercial break, you've got your skeptic glasses on, right? You know, I'm not going to be fooled by these evil marketers. But when we read the news or when we watch the television news, we tend to believe what it is that we're watching, right? We believe what we read in a novel. We don't believe what we read in an ad in a magazine, right? So I guess the difference between storytelling and pitching is storytelling is engaging that part of the mind that wants to believe, and pitching is having to smash through the barrier that doesn't want to believe what it is that we're telling. The reason why storytelling works so well is that it's been with us since humanity first evolved, right? So there were millions and millions of years where humans didn't have a written language to store and then share information with. Most of the information that we were sharing was essential to survival. You really had to know when to eat the fruit. You know, if it was green and you ate it, it would be poisonous, and if it was red and you ate it, it'd make you sick. But if it was red and you picked it and you pounded it and beat it and baked it, then it was safe to eat. So that's quite a lot of information to pass on from one person to another, and for another person to remember, so that 12 months from now, when those berries are fresh again, they can eat them. So what they would do is they would embed the information, the facts, in a little story that would make people remember, like a little virus inside a cell, right? And so the facts, with the overlay of the story, are what make a great story. Okay, so when we tell a story, we want to create a narrative arc. We want people to start with us at the beginning, go through a series of trials and tribulations, some setbacks, some impossible challenges, and then maybe our little single individual becomes a little group, a little party of adventurers. And then eventually they beat the bad guy, or the two lovers meet, or the mystery is discovered, and then there's a wonderful payoff at the end. Right? So when we're speaking to our audiences, we want to try and tell that same kind of story. We want to have a narrative arc so that our audience isn't standing there saying, no, I don't want to listen. They're saying, oh, let me come along with you on that journey, because I recognize this is a story, and stories are fun. One morning you're in the shower, you're working in an industry and you're thinking about a problem that industry faces, and you're in the shower and the light bulb goes off and you go, you could solve that with an app or a service in the cloud, right? But I better check with somebody else and make sure that this makes sense to them as well, right? So you step out of the shower, and I guess whoever you share the bathroom with is probably the first person you pitch to, you know? Most people don't think through how that story needs to be told. Usually they just start with, I was thinking about this problem, and then I was thinking about a solution, and then I was thinking you could actually take it to market in this way. And for a lot of pitching, a lot of the time, that's really all you need to do, but we get lost in a lot of other stuff along the way, and we lose the real storytelling part of what it is we're about. There are definitely some negative sides about talking to your friends and family first and getting their feedback. I mean, first of all, if they care about you, they want you to pursue your dream, and if they believe that this is your dream, they want to tell you that this is a great idea, that you should pursue it, you know. And they may not be the best unbiased audience to survey. On the other hand, perhaps you're the primary breadwinner in the family unit, and you're going to need to apply for some spousal leave to pursue your startup entrepreneur vision here. So sometimes there may be some implied negativity, some criticism, some concern, and so I sometimes wonder that just how many startup ideas might be out there in the community that we never get to hear about because they've been squashed at the spousal leave stage. So neuroscientists study what happens, right? And they put those little metal mesh nets on everybody's heads, and they can tell when a storyteller's doing a really good job. That when I tell the story, the neurons that fire in my brain are mimicked in your brain. The same neurons fire, right? So when we're engaging brain to brain and we're trying to get our neurons to mirror each other, the best way to do that is to involve other parts of the brain. So what does the rest of our brain do? The rest of our brain listens, obviously, that's already engaged. But the rest of our brain imagines, and it imagines things like how we felt, what we saw, what we tasted, what we heard, what we smelled, right? So one really great storytelling technique is to get people to use their imagination and to recall how they felt when they experienced another sensation through one of their other senses. So say, for instance, if I was going to pitch you a new drive hailing service like an Uber, right? So rather than saying, you get your app out on your phone and I would probably start with, do you remember the last time you were really, really late for something? and you're panicking and you're trying to remember where your stuff is and you're going for your raincoat and you're going for your handbag and you're worrying that you maybe don't have everything with you, then on top of all of that, you've got to figure out how to get the transport to you. Do you remember how that felt? That's a great way to take the audience with you on the story. The technology will be in there at some point, the business model will be in there at some point, and then at the end of the story, you bring people back to that, right? So the promise that we're delivering to you is that you're never going to have that feeling again of that awful panic as you're leaving the house trying to figure out how the heck to get to your next meeting on time. It's really useful to help you with your emotional state. To remember that in almost all pitching settings, almost always, most of the people in the audience want you to succeed, right? So if you're feeling nervous, they want you to be confident. If you're having trouble telling your story, they want your story to be told well. So really all you have to do is relax about that. You really don't have critics. You have supporters in the room. An investor doesn't sit through 1,000 pitches a month without wishing at some point that some of these pitches are great. So all you have to do is just relax and say, okay, this is my time to shine. I'm going to give them the great pitch that I hope I'll be able to give them.